Hello, I'm continuing my watch today. Every day I try and do a little something. Even if I'm busy, I try to get half an hour or an hour in. And it's quite a time consuming process. These things always take longer than you think they're going to take. I guess that's why you don't see that many handmade watches. I'm not even sure that my design is the most time consuming design there is anyway. So obviously these sort of things, you could make them just once and then you could cast from your original. That would allow production to be quicker. Here I'm just filing down my main piece which holds the movement, and I'm trying to get the piece that goes at 12 o'clock. This has to go inside the watch with a spring lug to secure it inside, and that's going to hold the lugs onto the outside of the watch. It's possible I could have just soldered this solid, but it's kind of nice having the 18 karat piece completely separate from the silver piece. Means that I might stand some chance in getting it hallmarked. It being hallmarked isn't the end of the world because I'm not intending to sell it, but it's always nicer to have these things marked. Now I've just cut a piece which is going to go either side of the end piece at 12 o'clock. This is going to have the lugs go through it. The lugs are going to go through it quite loosely because you have to slide the lug in from one side, so the outer holes I'm making loose. That's going to allow the movement of the end piece of the spring bar, and there's going to be two little tongues in the centre which will be tight, and they should stop the spring bar moving around, so it should stay nice and tight. Here I'm offering this metal up. I want it to tuck underneath the piece which goes around the dial. Just soldering it on the side there. These solder joins were a bit awkward. How you're going to hold it so that it solders on straight. Solder won't jump across a gap, so you need a good contact between the two pieces of metal. And balancing them there with the tweezers, it was hard to get them to sit right. And the first time I did this, I saw that the solder join wasn't good. Had to resolder it, and just trying to straighten everything up, make sure that everything's sitting at 90-degree angles, and then gonna just tap that one into 90-degree angle against the parallel pliers. Obviously when I was bending it with my fingers, the piece that I wanted to bend wasn't bending. The other piece, which was thinner, thought that would be the way to bend. Just taking away the excess material here, I overlapped it slightly so that it was a good strong join, and then I've got to sort out the piece on the other side as well. This has gone in and out so many times, constantly offering things up, checking if things line up properly with or without different pieces. This bit at the bottom in my left hand I noticed was a little bit loose, which was worrying, but then when I put the centerpiece inside it, it suddenly goes into the case quite tight, so everything's kind of interlocking together in order to, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. And I'm just noticing that that piece that I'm filing away there is touching and preventing gap closing on the other side. then cutting a little nodule out here. That is going to be the other side. I'm working in silver, so I can be a little bit wasteful on my material. I'm always cutting more than I need and filing it back a bit. And then soldering that side in. Again, it's a case of how you're going to hold this so that it sits right. I think I just held the end piece upright and balanced the other piece on top. Well, at first I've done it to the side, realised that it's too wide. I had to unsolder it and then do it the other way so that it sits on top rather than by the side. Not sure if you're following what I'm saying here, but eventually it's all soldered up, and I've got two side pieces, so it's kind of a U shape if you're looking from one direction, as you can see. Now I've got to cut two little nodules out of the top to accommodate the tongues that I'm going to put in, which will hold the spring bar in the middle. I'm quite glad I'm not going with this tongue idea that I originally thought, with the spring lugs being able to pop out of the case and the watch strap not requiring a buckle. Quite a novel idea, but there's not a lot of room there to do this, and even attaching it with a spring lug, it's a little bit on the tight side to get everything in there lining up without pieces clashing. Obviously I don't want when I take the insides out to change the time, because the crown's going to be on the inside, I don't want it clashing with the other piece when I slide it into the case, so everything has to interlock without catching, but then I want it tight. So some of these pieces I've filed little angles on the end so that nothing catches, and as it gets pushed in further it makes itself tighter. These two little nodules are being cut in the bezel around the dial and also the back piece. Cut them out slightly narrow and then widen them up. They ended up being a little bit wider than the material, so it doesn't fit tightly. What happened was it was the perfect fit, and when I soldered the tongue pieces on, which hold the spring bars, they obviously moved slightly in the soldering process, and then they wouldn't fit into each other, so I had to widen up these gaps again. Seem to be dropping it quite a lot today. Last couple of nights I've had 2 or 3 hours a night's sleep. I've been going to bed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then waking up sort of 8-9 o'clock in the morning, and a couple of times I've tried to get my head down during the day, but we've got fireworks going off at the moment, so it's not conducive to trying to get any extra sleep. But you got to do what you got to do sometimes. These pieces aren't there for any functional reason, and they're going to be chopped off. They're actually going to go into the piece which goes on the end of the case here. The reason that these are there, because it's easier to solder these down when I've got it sitting stably than if it's just a loose piece of metal and that's cut off. So they sat there while I soldered them, and they're going to be chopped off. And they're a bit proud as well at the moment. They're too thick. It's going to be filed flat. We've got a spring lug in there now, and that was a bit of a nightmare. There's not a lot of room. It has to sit inside this piece. These are left too long, so the actual they've got to be forwards of that line there. That's going to be the end of the case. I might even shrink back a little bit when it's filed up, and that's going to be on the front there. The steel, when it gets heated up, the spring goes soft, so this spring lug's useless now. But I had to use this to try and align this when I soldered this. This one I cut the holes first, then I soldered it in. This one I soldered it in, then I cut the holes. And drilling these holes were alright, but these holes I'm drilling through the hole that I've already made, and I was trying to move it so that it went straight. When I first did it, this lug was trying to hit here rather than go through the hole, so a bit tricky. I just used my eyeballs, so I didn't measure it up or anything, I just judged it. This piece, which is attached to this piece, slips inside underneath this and adds additional support. This is hitting the side of the case, which means that nothing rocks around. It's all very, very solid, no rattles, everything's held in by friction at the moment, and don't foresee that's going to change. If I can drill these holes into the 18 carat for the spring lug to come through accurately, then even if there was play between the metal, the spring lug should stop everything moving around, which is, obviously I don't want the watch to rattle at the end. It's got some weight to it. I want it to feel like quality, and quality things shut properly. If you've ever shut the door of a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or something, it clunks. Not like an MG where you shut the door and it rattles and it doesn't have any heft to it. So that's what I've done so far today.